It marked the day of Pope Francis's funeral, and Catholics across the world mourn the late pontiff. This includes worshipers in Bangor, where the St. John Church held their Saturday Mass in honor of Pope Francis. As Saturday was still within the octave of Easter, the Mass held that morning had set guidelines for the readings and hymns performed that day. Nonetheless, Pope Francis was still given mention during one of the homilies, and specific prayer intentions were offered for the Pope during the universal prayer. Worshippers took the time in the Mass to honor, remember, and pray for him. As an estimated 250,000 people attended Pope Francis's funeral in Rome, Father Andrew Dubois, pastor of St. Paul the Apostle Parish, points to Pope Francis's cultural impact as his reason for his posthumous honors.
The many articles that have been written, the way he's being remembered with very wonderful words. And it's not just that they're words of praise, but the fact that somehow he has moved people, he has touched people's hearts, he's made people feel welcome in the church. So I think all those things really play a huge role in why it's easy to honor him and speak well of him.
Pope Francis's funeral has concluded, and the late pontiff has been laid to rest at St. Mary Major Basilica in Italy.